In this assignment here, what you're going to be doing is, you remember what I talked about, and you don't write this down, just watch me. When we had to graph like equations, that is an example right there of an equation. As we know, there's y and x, but they're on opposite sides, with y being the letter by itself. So therefore, it's the equations in slope, intercept form. Okay. And then so I'd label m as 3 and b as 4. So the slope is going to be, and y-intercept, the slope is going to be 3, and the y-intercept is going to be 4. Okay, and remember, if you had to graph it, you want your slope to be a fraction, so we'd put a 1 underneath that 3. And then I'd go from there. And don't write this down. You should not be writing this down. Don't start writing until we get to the actual problems. Okay. So on the y-intercept, remember that's x, that's y. So on the y-intercept, I'd go up 4, because this is positive, just straight up on the y. And then from here, from that point, not from the middle, on for the slope, the 3 is positive, so we go up and 1 to the right. We always go to the right. Don't ever go to the left. Up and down changes, but not right to left. So 1, 2, 3, and then right there. And that is my line. Okay, and if you remember, I was always labeling y equals 3x plus 4. Okay, now on this, you're not graphing. What they're going to do is they're going to tell you the slope, and then they're going to tell you one of the other points on the line. So x is -3, and then y would be 5. Now what I have to do is use this information to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So the way to go about this is to write this following things. Y equals blank x plus blank. Okay. And then I like to put a little m under that. We're going to have to find a number that goes there, and we're going to put a b right there. And then what I'm going to do is I got to find the two numbers that go there, and that's the answer. Okay? So m and b, we want to label those. Well, this tells me what the m is, because it says the slope's -1. So -1's the m. Okay, so we'll go put -1 right there. Okay, now b is a little bit more complicated to figure out where the y-intercept would be at. And no, it's not 5, okay? Because it's not 5. That's another point on the line, but it's not the y-intercept. Because if you go left 3 up 5, well, that's not going to be on the y-axis. What we're going to do to find the b is use this formula, y equals mx plus b, and then I'm going to put a dot between the m and the x. Okay, just like that. Now our job is to solve for b, so we need to cross out the y, the m, and the x. Now don't scribble them. You want to see the letters there, but we need to replace them with numbers. Okay? So for the y, look over here, and y is 5, so I'm going to put a 5 right above the y. Y is now 5. There's a 5 there. And then the m is this, what I have here, it's what I have in the m blank, -1, dot, put a dot there, because you need that there, because eventually you're going to multiply two numbers together. Okay, and then the x that goes with that is -3. Okay, so over here we have 5, and then the equal sign. You need to be very careful how you're doing this. And then we're going to be taking -1 times -3. Times those two together, and that is +3. And then plus b, because we don't know what the b is yet. Now, at this point in the problem, I'm going to put a 1 in front of the b and circle it. Okay? And now, I'm not going to have to divide because there's a 1 there, but I do need to undo that 3 by adding or subtracting. Well, it's positive, so I'm going to be subtracting 3. Okay, and 5 minus 3 is 2. Equals, that's been crossed out, and I have 1b. Now, we don't need to divide because it's a 1 in front. 1's the b coefficient, and you never divide. I'm going to put a little note here. Don't divide at all when you're finding the b. Okay? I don't want to see that. So we'll go put our 2 here, and that's it. Okay, there's one way you can check your answer on a calculator. Okay? You punch in the -1, and then instead of x, you're going to make a parentheses, and you're going to put -3 in that parentheses, okay? And then hit +2. Now, before I click equals, I better get 5 as the answer, because that's what y equals. Okay, I did, so I know that that equation's right. That's the answer to the problem. Okay, now let's do another one. Same thing, and this is what you're going to do when you have to write y equals blank x plus blank. Okay, just like that. And I've got m and b. Okay, so and this is my m, and this is the b. So my m, my slope is 5/6, and that's my m. Go ahead and put that there. Now, yeah, it's a fraction. And then for the b, I use that formula, y equals m dot x plus b. Okay. All right, mx plus b, m dot x. So let's eliminate these 3 letters that are not b. Okay. So that's x, that's y. All right, so y is going to be 12. We're going to put a 12 there. And then my m is that 5/6 that's sitting right there. So 5/6 dot, because we're going to have to take whatever the m is times whatever the x is. That's 5/6 there. I know you can't see it. I put a 5/6 there. And then the x is 22. Okay, so what do we have? We have 12 equals, now I'm going to go to my calculator to multiply 5/6 times 22. So 5 ABC 6 times 22. 18 1/3. I know that seems a little awkward, but that's what we go with. So this times this was 18 1/3 plus b. Okay? And then I'm going to put the 1 in front of the b and circle it. Okay, so I need to get rid of the, I don't need to divide, but I need to undo this. I don't need to divide because it's a 1 in front of the b, but I do need to undo the 18 1/3. Now, if it's positive, we're going to subtract. Okay, so I go 12 minus 18 and 1/3. I got -6 and 1/3. So -6 and 1/3 equals 1b. And we don't need to divide because the b has a coefficient of 1. Any other coefficient we would divide, but the b always has a coefficient of 1, so we don't worry about it. So I put -6 and 1/3 right there. I know that looks really awkward, but that's fine, okay? You just follow your procedure. Now on the back side, we're doing the same thing, but the information changes. They do not tell us the slope. Okay, and also I'm going to go back to this. Remember the way to check your answer on a calculator. You punch in 5/6, ABC 6, and instead of x, we're going to put a parentheses, and we're going to insert our x value of 22. And then plus -6 and 1/3. Now to do a mixed number, you go 6, ABC 1, ABC 3, and it's 12, and that matches that number there. Has to be a match. Okay, now on the next problem, again, the information changes. They do not tell us the slope. Instead, they give us 2 points on the line. So we don't know the slope. We're going to have to find the m. They're not going to just give it to us. So y, remember slope-intercept form. Y equals blank x plus blank, and that's the m, and that's the b. So m and b. Now, you're like, well, I don't know the m. Doesn't tell me. Well, there's a formula you use when it doesn't tell you. And that is y minus y divided by x minus x. Okay? So I'm going to set this up. Remember, that's 7, with this equation, if x is 7, y needs to be 11. And if x is 13, y needs to be 17. Okay, now that that's established, I'm going to put my y's on top here. 11 and 17, okay? You can put 11 minus 17 or 17 minus 11. Now, the textbook always wants the second y listed first, y2 minus y1. It doesn't matter as long as your order is consistent. So let's say I deviate from that rule, and let's say I put 11 first and 17 second. Okay, that'll work. All right, so, and then the x we have to put in the same order. If we went 11 minus 17, we have to take 7 minus 13. You just got to be consistent in your ordering. So 11 minus 17, well, what is that? That's negative 6. 7 minus 13 is negative 6. And then we find the quotient by dividing. Negative 6 by negative 6 equals 1. Okay? Not hard, so I put 1 as my slope. All right, finding the b is the same thing. So y equals mx, m dot x, plus b. So we cross out the 3 letters we don't need because we need the b. And y, now you're like, well, there's 2 y's. Which one do I use? Pick one of them. I usually pick the second one. Let's just always pick the second one. You can pick the first 2 and you'll get the same thing. But we're going to pick the second one. So y will use 17. M will use that 1 that we have up there. Remember, they didn't tell us it was 1. That's from this here. And then the x is 13. So what do we have? We have 17. 1 times 13 is easy. That's 13. Plus b, and we put a 1 in front because I'm going to circle that. That tells me, okay, I don't need to divide, but I have to undo this 13 by adding or subtracting. Minus 13. Minus 13. 4 equals 1b. And we can eliminate the 1. Okay? So 4. So that's your answer. Y equals 1x plus 4. Okay, now ignore this these things down here. I don't want to confuse you. You just get the process down. Okay, same thing. Y equals mx plus b. Okay. And my m and my b. So m's a slope, and again, they don't tell us the slope, but I know if x is 0, y is negative 1. And I also know if x is 3, y is negative 5. So m, I have y minus y, x minus x. Okay, so what are my y's? Well, negative 1 minus, you always start with a minus, and then the y is negative 5. So negative 1 minus negative 5. Now, whenever we have minus negative, I like to make it plus plus. Only if it's minus and then a negative. Those two little, they look like 2 little eyelashes. We don't want those eyelashes. We want to put crosses through them so they become plus plus. Okay, meanwhile, the x is 0, minus sign, and then our x is 3. Okay, so that's just a good old minus, not with the negative. When it's minus negative, then plus plus is the way to go. So that ends up being 4, and that ends up being negative 3. Okay, now there's 2 things you can do. 4 doesn't divide by negative 3 very well. Okay, you can see that's what I get. So what you want to do, if you get like a decimal that never ends, if you get a decimal, it's fine, but if it never ends, what you want to do is leave it as a fraction, okay? Just put 4 over 3, and since you have a negative, just put the negative in front of it, okay? A decimal is okay, but when it never ends like that, it's going to be really messy if we try to write that, okay? So again, when we get a decimal that never ends, never terminates, we're just going to go with the fraction, and if there's a negative, okay, just put it in front. Now, if there's 2 negatives, then you would just get rid of both of them. They'd cancel out, okay? But when there's 1, we want to put it in front of the slope. Okay, b, and then we're going to do the same thing, okay? Y equals mx plus b. And remember, that's m times x. We're going to just cross those out and put the numbers that are there. Let's pick the second one again. So y is negative 5. And the m is the negative 4 over 3. Okay. And the x is 3. So I have negative 5 equals, and I need to times those. I'm going to use my calculator. So negative 4 ABC3 times 3. I got negative 4. Okay. Plus B, and I'm going to stick a 1 in front of that. So I have to undo the negative 4 by adding or subtracting. I would add. And negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. And then we have 1B, but having the 1 as a coefficient means I don't need to do anything with it. And there we go. Okay, now as far as checking your answers go, again, I kind of skipped that here. Let's pick this point. You can pick that one too, but we'll pick this one. So I've got 1. Instead of x, let's make a parentheses. We're going to put 13 in. And then we're going to plus 4. And when I hit equals, it should be 17. Sure it is. Okay, down here, negative 4 over 3. Instead of x, we're going to make a parentheses, and we are going to put 3 in, because that's the x value. Plus, and what I'm doing here is simply just checking my answer to make sure it's right. Okay, and I'm hoping this is 3. Or no, negative 5. Negative 5. Okay, and it is. Okay, and you have 4 of these to do on your own. And yeah, let's go from there.